Hello there! Welcome to my very first Fanart Friday video. Usually I'm working on my cat.net watercolor comic series, but I decided to switch things up once in a while and also do some fan art. The point is basically just to, well, like I said, to draw something else besides cats all the time. Although that's, of course, that's also fun and I like to work on that. But in a longer going project, drawing just comic pages every single day, well, even the most fun project gets a bit tedious after a while. And just in order to get my mind off of things or get some distraction or whatever, I thought it would be fun to work on some just fun, simple fan art illustrations. When you're working on sequential art projects such as a comic or a graphic novel or also an animation or something like that, drawing it, the creation part is actually just like maybe half of it or even less. And drawing it is actually the fun part. Getting to the drawing is the part that's most stressful and tedious. Like, of course, writing the story, creating the characters, and once you got the story, creating the setup, the paneling, the flow of the story, all these things that are necessary to create, like a comic project or other kinds of sequential art like that. You also have to worry about the backgrounds, you have to worry about all the characters and the scenery looking the same in every panel, and not having too many changes from page to page within your characters. That's why working on fan art like this is so much more stress-free than creating a whole comic by itself. Because like I said, for a comic or also when you're doing your own character illustration, your OCs, you have to come up with everything by yourself. Whereas for the fan art, it's pretty much all already decided for you. Everything's there, the character is there, the colors are there. All you pretty much have to do is just like think of maybe an interesting pose and add your own twist to things, maybe add your own style, and then use whatever media you enjoy drawing or painting in. So this is a very welcome change for me once in a while, doing once a week a fan art of a character that I like. Not like a character that's popular at the moment, but just some character, some simple character that I have some emotional connection to, I would say. And, well, starting out with Trucy Wright from the beloved Ace Attorney series. I've always been a big fan of the Ace Attorney series ever since I got my hands on the first game. Really like the story and the characters and the individual cases. Sometimes a hit, sometimes a miss, of course. One point that's been very appealing is that it's one of those games where you're not winning by having the strongest character or the biggest weapon, but having these like battle of wits and like battles of intelligence, or however you would put it, of using your head, and not just only by being right, but also by proving how you got to this conclusion and how you're right. And this kind of sense of accomplishment that you achieve when you nailed the case, I think that's something very unique to Ace Attorney and something that I haven't seen in many other games like that, and certainly not in any game before Ace Attorney, at least not to my knowledge. And it's just one of those games that can genuinely bring me to tears, depending on the case and the character arcs and whatever. So that's why I decided to start this Fan Art Friday with Trucy Wright. Why Trucy? Why not one of the main characters? Well, she is a main character, but why not Phoenix Wright or Maya Fey or Miles Edgeworth? I think for me, I've always had more of an interest in side characters. Kind of the classical how Sam is more popular in Lord of the Rings than Frodo or Aragorn or whatever. Or what other example would there be? Luigi and Mario, I don't know. Maybe also because when you look up fan art of any series, the first thing that pops up are, of course, the main characters. Everybody loves to draw the main characters, and side characters don't get as much love. But I think also in many stories, the side characters are a bit more flexible, like how the hero has to be the hero. The hero has to be always good, always make the correct and right decisions, and you follow him around everywhere you go. While the side characters often are allowed more some quirks or being a bit more extravagant. And I think it's because the hero is expected to win, and the hero is expected to do these great things and achieve greatness, and the side characters aren't. So whenever the side characters actually do take the spotlight, and when they do actually achieve something great, it's more unexpected. It's more unexpected of them, and thus, it's a bit more fascinating or impressive. That isn't to say that I don't like the other characters just as much. I actually think the Ace Attorney games have one of the best, like, whole cast of characters, where pretty much almost all of the main cast, like the lawyers, the assistants, and the prosecutors, all of them are really, really good and interesting characters. Even those that aren't the best of them are still very interesting in their own aspect. And I would also love to work on maybe Maya one day, or Franziska, Edgeworth, of course. Yeah, and the reason why I started with Ace Attorney is not just because I like the series so much or I like the characters, they also seem so fun to draw. I don't know, all of them have this kind of energy to them, being really like high-spirited or dorky, however you would put it. So let's talk a bit about the illustration itself. Yeah, I started with pretty much like I always do also for my comic. Started with a sketch and Procreate on the iPad, then printed it out on a regular sheet of paper, put it on my LED tracing tablet, and then traced it with ink and quill. Though for these fan art illustrations I'm actually using a different type of paper than I do for my comic. For my comic I'm using Saunders Waterford cold pressed paper, while for these fan art illustration now I decided to switch things up and use my not that super expensive paper and go with the cold pressed paper that I still had lying around in my office, which took a bit to get used to. Cold pressed and hot pressed paper is vastly different in terms of cold pressed being much more smooth, having a far smoother surface, which is why the quill that I used was like gliding over it like over silk. It was a bit difficult to find the perfect quill for the cold pressed, more rough paper, the more texturized paper, one that could actually, also glide over this rough paper. So using the same quill for this cold pressed paper proved pretty difficult, just because it was like, how would you say, like gliding over the paper way too smoothly. I just didn't even consider that. I just used the quill that I always go with. Shouldn't have done that. That was a bit stupid. Next time I'm just using a regular G pen, I guess, which is more suited for this kind of smooth paper. Apart from that, I found that the watercolor itself, it looks pretty good on the paper, but I found it a bit more difficult to work with because the paper, it doesn't quite soak the color up as well. So when you use too much water, you get these puddles on the surface, and it takes quite a while to soak into the paper. Also, when you want to create layers, like when you want to make the shadows a bit darker and apply another layer of blue, like I did here as well, that becomes more difficult by the number of layers you apply. I think the paper isn't that forgiving while as more coarse cold pressed paper, yeah, it's more working with you while the cold pressed paper is working against you. But I think that's all just a question of getting used to it. I just went into this pretty inexperienced, like learning by doing, see how it turned out. Yeah, and it wasn't terrible. Both have their pros and cons. I think the color shines a bit better on the cold pressed paper because the surface is, the paper itself is more bright and the surface is more reflective and smooth, so you get a bit more bright colors there. And it also felt to me a bit like the watercolor never completely sinks into the paper. There's always some, like, it remains more on the surface, so you can't really lift color out of the paper anymore. If you do it, you get this, yeah, like this wettish, or how would I say, you kind of destroy the paper by that. You can't really only take the color out of the paper. You would kind of lift the parts of the paper itself from the sheet, tearing the paper apart by using too much water. But maybe that's just due to my inexperience. Maybe more experienced cold press watercolor artists will tell me something different, and that it's actually working fine, and I'm just too inexperienced to do it correctly. Keen observers will also have noticed the cat that sits on Trucy's back. If you don't know, that's actually one of the cats from my cat comic. Just couldn't resist putting one of them in there. I was thinking of like a cute pose for Trucy here. Thought of her just like kind of squatting, being more lost in thought. And then I thought, hey, why not show her without her hat, which is a side of her that you don't get to see too often. And yeah, with her just sitting down like that, I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun and fitting if she had some cat sitting on her back? And the cat was wearing the hat, kind of like, you know, like instead of a white rabbit coming out of the hat, a fat white cat coming out of the hat. That's pretty much it. So yeah, that's all I've got to say for now. Just feel free to sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the video, and I'll meet you again at the end. So yeah, I think that's it so far. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the very first Fanart Friday, and look forward to the next one. Thanks. Bye.